So Tyrone is here, our guest for today in the channel to talk about the street epistemology and his projects and his experience with the subject. Hi Tyrone, nice to meet you. How are you
What's
doing?
up? I'm happy. I'm Ty. It's nice to meet you. I do a channel called Let's Chat on YouTube, and I practice SE, which is just a really fun way of talking to people without getting them upset, turning the conversation into an argument or a debate, and you still get to have some really great, meaningful conversations about what people hold as a deeply held belief. And you can get to the core of why they hold that belief in a really productive way. And I'm just trying to show that you can talk to anyone about anything. And that's basically it. That's what the hobby's all about.
Thank you very much for coming and having this time with us. Do you feel like a little delay or cutting on your video? Because it has happened here on my side. So just to know if it's not going to be happening
I'll let you
in
know.
the video.
I'll let you know. And if anything, we can always edit it and make it a little bit more compact in the future.
Okay, because for me, it's kind of like a freezing.
Oh, really? No,
not
you're
really
good on my
cutting.
side.
Okay, it's not really cutting your sound, but the video is getting a little slow.
Okay.
Little lag. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, what I would like to ask you, it's about your experience. How long you have done that, and yeah, what is your hints for people that really would like to start?
I think people are already doing it. I just feel like there's a format that can improve how we do it. So like I go out with a table and I'll set up at like college campuses, parks. I've done protest rallies. I'll go to political events and I'll just set up a table. It's got a sign that says, let's chat about whatever you want. I got like 2 GoPro action cameras. I got like a microphone set up and 2 chairs and people can sit down and talk. But you don't have to do that to do SE. I think SE can be done as easy as just a quick little conversation. You can flow it into your regular casual conversations. You could set up like a actual, lunch where you talk to someone about things that are important to them. Or you can have it like, hey, you're talking about movies later. You were talking about movies before, and you think Black Panther's like a 10 out of 10. Why do you think that? Like, whenever you ask someone why they believe what they believe, you're already getting really close to what SE is already about. So it doesn't take an extra financial investment to get better at it or to even start doing it, because people have already done that. Like, that's already what people do. What I'm trying to show is that it can be done on a number of topics, more than just the casual conversations, but things about money, religion, politics. SE can actually be a really effective tool in these conversations that we've trained, at least in America. We have this misunderstanding that you can talk about certain things because they are too personal or they're too weighted or too controversial. But it's just a matter of knowing how to have those conversations. And what I'm doing with my table is showing that, hey, I can have these conversations with strangers, with friends, neighbors. You can have these conversations with anybody about anything. And it just takes an awareness of how to ask really good questions that gets you to where you need to go in the conversation without trying to drag it into a place where people are uncomfortable. You can ask about these really sensitive conversations in a way that makes people feel relaxed and conversational. And my whole channel is all about like no drama, right? So if you want to see examples of plenty on the Let's Chat YouTube, but there's a bunch of other people too who I'll promote. But you were asking like how long I've been doing this. I think I've been doing this for as long as I can been able to talk, and I think most people have as well. I think as far as like really enhancing SE as a hobby, I've been doing it for about a year and a half. And to be honest with you, I only really started getting really good at it after about the first week. Like I had one conversation, I was like, I could do better at this. Like the first conversation I had, I think I did it at a park in Lexington. There's a park nearby a school that has a bunch of trees and it's a walking path and it's really, really nice. The only issue is I set up in May and it was still really, really cold in Kentucky, like really like freezing. So I'm sitting there in my jacket. I got the table and everything like that. And my sign was terrible back then. But like the dynamics of the environment were really what were holding me back to having like a good conversation because there wasn't many people out. But I did have a conversation with a couple of people, and I realized actually this isn't so bad. All these, emotions of me feeling like this would be weird or like judging myself or being afraid to stand out, those instantly went away as soon as, oh, you can do this. This is an easy thing to do. And then I just picked a day where it was warmer outside. And then after that, it was really easy to go through. There's a book that you can learn like the initial basics of how SE started. I did not read the book. I didn't read the book. It was by Peter Boghossian. It's a good book. I think I listened to the audiobook for the first couple of chapters while I was
Is this
moving in.
one you're talking about?
It's that one. It's not a
I
bad book.
always advertise. It's a book that has been around us. It's a kind of old. We have gone, me and my husband and I, we have gone through it.
Yeah.
Few times, and we always buy new samples and give to people. It's awesome. It is.
I tell you.
Yeah, Peter Boghossian is, it's an idol that one day we're gonna end up interviewing, talking to.
Not bad. Okay, he's cool. He's active on Twitter too. But it's not a bad book. But I feel like if you want examples of how to do SC properly, or like the more updated versions of like techniques that have actually gone in the field and work, and like the current wordcraft and like the strategies and like the mindsets of like successful conversations, there are already really good examples in video form on YouTube right now.
Oh, yes.
And that's where I really learned from, because I think I was doing something similar to SE at a local meetup group when I was in Kentucky, and or when I was back in Tennessee when I was living in Knoxville, and there was a bunch of atheists who would meet up every Wednesdays and eat pizza, and it was a bunch of different people every day, or every each time we had it, different age groups, different people coming in for the first time, and you could sit down and talk to them and realize like, how did you become an atheist? What does that mean to you? What would make you go back to a religion? Like, these are like questions that I think people in our group, I haven't even checked to see if you're an atheist too myself, but like for atheists like me, I love asking questions like that because it always makes me wonder, like, how did you get to this position? And then what convinced you to be religious? And then what convinced you to get back to, the default, which is I'd rather have a good reason to believe something than just believing it without a good reason, right? So when I was going through that, people were like saying like, hey, you're doing something that's like SE. There's a guy on YouTube who does it where he just like goes up to people and asks them about the religion. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds really, really uncomfortable. Like, I think he's like instigating conversations and trying to like blow up his YouTube channel and get subscribers. YouTube is like sort of like a hotbed for controversial, look at me kind of videos. But when I finally did look at the videos, I found, hey, this guy, his Anthony Magnabosco videos, he has a really, really, really calm demeanor, and he's inviting these people into having a conversation to figure out how they came to their conclusions rather than telling them what to believe. And there's no sell at the end. He's not like, so you should be an atheist now. It's more like, make sure you think about this a little bit more. And that is so cool because he's not going to the conversation trying to change someone's mind. He's just giving them the tools to be able to do it themselves. And that takes so much pressure off of you as the interviewer. And I thought, okay, now I have a completely different framework to kind of have these kinds of conversations. I'm going to look at more of his videos. I'm going to look at some Reed Nicewinder's videos. He's a new guy who came out too. His channel's called Cordial Curiosity. And I'm going to try that. Yeah,
we shared. I think because the algorithm ends up like kind of putting us together, So I started in 2012 with Anthony Magnabosco, and he was the one that crossed our contacts. And recently, I've found Cordial Curiosity on the algorithm on YouTube, and I really liked a lot of his videos. I like his behavior, for the people, like he's very like impartial, and sometimes like people get like confused before him because they do not know we are, as humans, we are always measuring and responding to the other people's reaction. So he sometimes is so impartial that the people were like, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, as there is a right or wrong position,
Right.
or right, wrong answer for his questions, when he's just being reasonable and asking like, when is the right time to use faith to believe something?
Right.
I saw him talking to some religious people, and he's really great. I really like his videos. Anthony Magnambosco is just fantastic. I
Yeah.
really look up to him and watch a lot of his stuff. And yeah, now following you, and you guys have to check his material, and Cordial Curiosity and Anthony Magnambosco as well.
And
Yeah, would
there's
you
a bunch.
suggest anybody else that we did not
Yes.
talk, and
Yes.
leave maybe give me a little list that I can link on the video so people can check other channels and other videos
Sure.
related?
So there's a bunch of friends that I have from all around the world who also do this hobby, and I think it's really great the number of people that you meet in person when you do this, or connect with overseas even. So like obviously, like we wouldn't be having this conversation without SE. So Fanny, awesome channel. Hey, if you're watching this channel or video right now, subscribe. She'll have a lot of other cool interviews in the future. But there's another lady named Linda Mako who's situated in Finland and the UK. And she has a really interesting approach with her SE. She does hers in her kitchen. She invites people to talk to her while
That's
inside of her kitchen.
nice.
And her setup inside her kitchen is really, really nice. Or her job is basically setting up like the looks for parties or like employer and vets. So she's like really meticulous with her design ethic. And so when she does her stuff in the park, she goes out with like a big, wagon, like on a bicycle, and she'll set up like a nice rug on a picnic table. She'll have coffee out, she'll have teacups out, and they all
Oh,
match
nice.
each other. And she's just talking to people. Sometimes she's talking to people in her native language, and other times it's in English. So, but she's very good in both of them. And there's another guy the name is Ben Diesel. He's situated in South Africa. And what's really cool is he's a white guy in South Africa, but he's African, right? But there's black
Yeah.
in Africa who are also African. So there's basically two Africans talking to each other who are both Africans, but it's like the dynamics of the racial relationships are so foreign to me because I'm used to only like this Western American mindset of like black white. And like I got white friends, I got black friends, it's no big deal. But like the dynamics of how we interact with each other is completely different compared to
It's
over there.
completely different.
Because
Yeah, mainly because like I think more on the values, and as well on the politics as well.
yeah, and I'm coming to it with such a degree of ignorance that I don't like. I'm like looking at the handshakes he's doing with them. I'm like, how do you do? What is going on here? And he's fluent in Afrikaans as well, so he can slip into it and then out of it. He'd have
Yeah.
most of his channels in English though, but it's just cool to see SC taken out of a dynamic that I'm very familiar with, like America, and then put in a completely different country, and then realize from that contrast where
Excuse me.
where the limitations are and like what people are doing to break through them, because it is nebulous when only people who are really similar use it or use it in the same way. And that inspired me to try to do SE in a way that's comfortable for me to do. And I like to be really casual with people and really conversational, so my style tends to be a lot more like just my natural friendly way of talking with
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I,
I actually see that, and I have mentioned and suggested to friends some street epistemology videos, and I use like Anthony Magnambosco, people that I follow, like him, you, and Cordial Curiosity, as three different examples of the way your personality
hmm,
approach changed because of the behavior. Like you're more friendly. Cordial Curiosity is very close. Like you can't tell what he's thinking about, and Anthony it's in the middle. Like so. I like those
it,
different this difference in the personal approach. That change. So that's why I like to like have more people and see more
sure, sure,
people
sure.
doing.
Uh, would you like to know my inside perspective of the personalities? So, like, I always consider myself default because I
Yes.
don't really know what else I can compare myself to. but or like inside my own head, like I don't have that objective standard. But I can say for Reed, I can sympathize. He is very much a person that lives in California, and I grew up in California, so I know how crazy is crazy politically correct. I don't care. They're crazy. It's real. The people in California, the barriers between um like calm, passive, but like more or less in line versus like, oh my gosh, what is this person talking about? What weird, set of rules is he living his life by, are much wider in California than they are in like a place like Idaho, right? Or like Missouri or stuff like that. California has like the biggest
Yeah.
range, and as a result, the more normal person has like shifted on average towards like, nuts people nutty people, or like really interesting personalities. So in
Yeah.
order to like maintain that or like deal with that sort of equilibrium, you have to
Yeah.
shift yourself way more towards, okay, yeah, so you smoke crystals and you've been abducted by aliens and you're actually an alligator. Okay, well, tell me about that, because as far as I care, that's basically a Tuesday for me. And I can see Reed is just like, heard this like 100 times. You can try to surprise me with whatever you want, but like, I live here. I was born in darkness, so there's really nothing that can make him laughable. And I get that, because when I'm there, I sort of like close up too. It's only since I came to this, like, start living in the South, that I'm like, when you like say hi to someone in America, they say like, the way you say hi in America is more like, "How are you doing?" And then the other person says, "How are you doing?" And then you both walk away. Like there's no conversation there typically. It's like, "Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you?" Gone. Like that's hello, right?
Yeah.
But in Kentucky or like Tennessee, when you're like, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm good. My mom just came to visit me for two," like complete stranger. And you're like, "Okay, I got locked into a conversation now." So you have to like be a little bit more open, like I guess. And in California, you can't do that. um, and for Anthony, I think he has a power that I call the dad voice, because he is a father, and he can say things, he can say basically anything he wants in that tone of voice and get away with it, because he knows the tone to say it in a way that does not make it seem like he's telling someone what to do or is making them angry. It's more of like I remember there was a video where he was talking to like two different people, and one of them was like, yeah, I think it should be like this. And he's like, "Oh, would you like some water?" But I can't just offer people water, because it doesn't make sense in my tone of voice, because it sounds like I'm actually offering you like some water. But when he does it, it's like, "Can I nurture you as your father figure?" More to it. And the person's like, "Yes, complete stranger, I would love to take some water for you and ingest it." Like, I couldn't do that. Like, there's some things that he can do that I can't do. And there's some things that Reed can do that he does better than anybody else. And I like to find like there's avenues that I can do too. But what it really comes down to is that we are in injecting our own personalities and the things that we're really good at into our SC approach. And that if everybody has a personality and if everyone has something that they're good at, SC can be a way for them to highlight that in their approach as well. So there isn't one way to do this. Everybody can do this, and everyone has something to offer, because everyone's a little bit different from each other. And the more people who do this, the more we realize what works and what doesn't work, and we can inform the method overall to get a more productive way to talk to people about whatever they want to talk about. That's it.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little slow to answer you because here it's a little, like I told you, it's lagging.
No, it's
It's a
all
little
good. It's
slow.
all good.
It's cutting just the video. I can hear you, no problem. Um, so uh, one of the things I saw in your videos and I really liked is that you really use that conversation in the way that normally you have people asking you, like different from other street epistemologists, that I see that Anthony asks normally let it open for the guests or the interviewer to turn back questions into him, and normally people just ask him about his religiosity or whatever subject is his opinion on. In your case, I saw that you kind of you're so friendly, you know, in your behavior, in your way, your personality, what you input in your interviews, that people really get into like ask you like to interview you back into a lot of things, and I really like that. I actually liked it, and I think I left a bunch of comments in the video that you interview a girl about spanking children or
Ah,
and atheism, and I really like that talk. And in the end, she interviews you. She's like, I'm up to try street epistemology as well, and then you encourage her to try, and you talk about men and women difference, that you think men are superior, and I really like that
as a role
subject.
playing,
I
role
love
playing.
that subject. And because I actually thought it's like, I agree with you that men are superior in general, you know, like, so I actually comment on the video after and saying that I think you did not use the right arguments to support your claim,
Oh,
but
interesting.
I do agree with your opinion, you know,
Okay.
with different
And
subjects.
for the record, that is like a role playing session that we did with her afterwards. I think I gave up. I think I think what it comes down to is like I'm trying to show that essay can be done on things other than just religion. I can also do it with like favorite movies or just flat out opinions, right? Because instead of like attacking the methodology that we use to get to the religious belief, or someone uses to get to the religious belief, we can likewise attack the methodology that someone used to come to this hardcore opinion that they
Yeah.
have, or like question that criteria that they're using to justify holding that opinion. And what I like to do is like come up with like a fun topic to like hopefully inspire someone to like attack, right? And hope
Yes.
not attack the conclusion, but more or less attack the criteria of how I arrived at that conclusion. Because then they're doing the editing in a really good way, because they're not making me feel personally attacked when they attack my personally held conclusions.
Yes.
They're hitting this weird methodology route that I don't really have a lot of ego invested in. So I think I said men are superior to women based on like what was it, strength, the number of current bosses that I've had in my past.
Yeah, I think one of the arguments was the popularity, the fallacy of popularity, because
Yeah.
because I have more men everywhere, and it's like, oh, I don't like that argument because that can be turned against us as a as as an argument for feminists to try to say like, oh, you see, there are more men
Right.
representativity, and it's like, actually it's not true, because we have other fields where we have actually more women than men,
Mm,
and you know, talking about equality in general. So it's a hot topic.
no,
I consider myself anti-feminist, and I agree with you that men are superior,
I
you know,
didn't even
than
say that. That's
but
where I was the role player. But I'll tell you
in
this:
general, but
the argument the argument would be the number of people who believe it, not necessarily the real reason why you believe it. Because what she did is not necessarily attack the initial argument. She wanted to see how much confidence I was investing into it. That led
yeah,
to the ultimate confidence that I had in the opinion. So she's like, well, if women had more, if you had more women bosses than men, would that reduce or change your opinion that men are superior? And I think I said no. So then
yeah,
she just takes that right off the table, because why care about
yeah,
who's popular, who has more bosses or not? Because whether it's more women or more men, I'm still going to hold the same conclusion with the same
yeah.
veracity of confidence. Clearly, this isn't what I'm weighing my confidence in. So she's not going to invest any energy trying to dismantle that argument. And I find like a lot of times when we don't do an SC approach, we invest so much time tackling one, superficial argument at a time, not without realizing that this isn't the cornerstone that I'm resting all my confidence in.
Yeah, but that is why I like that conversation, because she did not jump on the feminist argument. She actually found another argument to equiparate to your to be equal to yours, you know. So
Do you
she's like,
remember what
oh
that was?
no, in my she actually pointed to you that in her work environment is the same as what you perceive, that there are more men. She's like,
Mm,
no, in my environment there are more women and there are successful women. And it's like, so is this a valid argument to debate yours? And it would
yeah.
be. Yeah.
And then
And it's like, so now we will shut this down and we go to the next one.
And the next one was like, who's stronger? And she's like, okay, so definitely men have been stronger, but what does that correlate?
We have the bell curve. I would say that in that argument, I would use the bell curve, because we see the curve that is like, in general, yeah, in average, you have men being
Faster,
better than
stronger.
women in all the topics, and in average as well, like their curve is going to be over. So I think that it's factual, it's
no doubt.
The bell curve is it's like an evidence, it's not an opinion.
But then we have that correlation fallacy, right? Where it's like, okay, so you have a criteria that's based on just one factor. How does that relate to overall superiority if we're only
I think that is not the factors. Because if
I'm revising.
What I'm talking about, like of course, but in this specific situation, I'm talking about like what it would be the next subject was like when we pointed all the areas and fields that the men would be superior, and we like found out like, yeah, in sports and in games and in chess and cooking and and even beauty now. And it was a funny.
Fanny, just so we're caught up, I'm reviewing I'm reviewing the conversation that we had with Bethany. Out of character, and just bringing up the arguments and showing how it was really good, how Bethany's approach was really good at telling the perspective I had when I was role playing as a person who thought men were superior than women. And I thought like the fact that she didn't invest time on arguments that I didn't really care about, and took the time to find the one that I did weigh a lot on, and then ask me, not tell me like, hey, this doesn't relate to the one or the other, or tell me that actually women are superior. She asked me once we found the argument that I was really confident in, that like men are stronger, therefore they're always better than women. Like, how does those two things relate? Can you draw that line for me? And when I realized that in character that I didn't have like a good way to say, well, this limited criteria represents this entire, two populations, I don't really have a correlation between the two, aside from just saying, well, I can see it's stronger, but I don't know how stronger necessarily relates to overall better. She didn't push any further than that. She says, that's really interesting. Maybe that's something you should consider or think about. And we ended the conversation there with me being more willing to question, as in character, the position that I had. And I think that if we tackle conversations rather than you're wrong or I agree with you and I want to support it with even better stuff, or you're wrong and I want to break down your argument completely to the point where you change your mind in that conversation, then you're going up against a lot of weight when you walk into a conversation. But if you just go into a conversation with like, hey, I can't change your mind, but I'm at least going to give you some tools or moments to think about how you came to the conclusion and give you the inspiration to, look into it yourself. That is a hugely different dynamic. And that's why you can have these casual conversations, because you're not going into it with any impetus to actually change the person's mind. You're allowing them to be as open-minded as you are. And that opens up the door for them to actually realize, hey, maybe I don't have a good reason to believe this. I'll keep thinking about it and either
What are you thinking now about that argument?
I just like,
have you thought more about that after?
Yeah, I was role playing as a character who believed that. Like, I was purposely throwing out arguments that I one, didn't necessarily believe in, but two, wanted to make sure that she understood how SE is situated in. Like, it's not about tackling everything that I give out one at a time. It's about sifting through the bad arguments to find the one that I really care about, the one that's holding this, belief that I have, and then determining how I arrived at that belief, and whether or not that method that I'm using is actually reliable or not. There's this really cool thing. SE does not care, or the way how I use SE, I don't care about what I'm being told. It doesn't matter to me if someone said they got invaded by aliens or if they have, $20 in their pockets. It's more about how did they arrive at that conclusion, and is that methodology reliable? And then whether or not I agree with them or not, or whether I disagree with them, is not the point of the SC conversation. It's just, can we look at how you came to this conclusion? And can we see if that was a reliable way that you did that in? Or if it was credible, or if it's reasonable for you to believe this based on this path. And if you're like really, really absolutely confident, but you're using a methodology that's like 50-50, shouldn't you at least be 50% confident? Because what you haven't really calibrated your confidence well. Like, you're more confident in the method that you're using to get there. And sometimes just pointing that out is enough to just be like, I'm not saying you're wrong. You might actually be right, but you're more confident than the method that you're using to even get to that conclusion. Isn't that concerning? And they'll be like, okay, well, I still believe it, but I'll look for a better method to come to my conclusion. And that's just as good as someone realizing, hey, I don't have a good reason to believe this. Let me do some homework. Yeah, that's basically it.
But my question about the end of that conversation was more about, in the end, it's like you doubted about your methodology because you did not have a link or a relation to put, like a cause effect. What would be the criterion for you to finish your conclusion and end up like, no, I do think men are stronger than women, for example?
Sure. Yeah. Could you repeat the question? I'm not sure if I totally.
What do you think has stopped you from keep going on your, in the link of men are stronger than women, and to support your claim? You think you missed like some type of knowledge, or you think like examples that you found that would counterpoint your affirmation?
Let me know if this answers the question.
Okay.
And I think it's a good one, but I just want to make sure I'm answering. I want to make sure I'm answering. So if I'm not, feel free to interrupt. But like a lot of times when I'm having conversations with people and I feel like they've begun to make a connection, I will stop the conversation, because I think the thing they need the most isn't more evidence or more discourse. They need time to think about it for themselves. And whether it's in the middle of a conversation where it's like a pregnant pause where you'll like just give them time to answer, or realizing, hey, I think we made some really great ground. Let's talk again if you have some time, and you just end the conversation there, or the SC talk there. Giving them time to think about their conclusion or the new conclusions that they've reached to, or the new epiphanies they've reached, is way, way, way more beneficial than anything I could have done when I was talking to Bethany, or anything Bethany could have done when she was talking to that character.
No, I understand, but I mean in your thoughts about that subject is what I was trying to explore more.
Okay. I don't personally feel persuaded either way. Like, I have criteria where I say, like, okay, men have won more gold medals. I'll have criteria where like men are naturally sometimes taller. But as far as better, that would need to be a defined criteria for me to actually say, now that we know what better is, we can look at this list and see who's better or not. So I don't have that opinion.
Okay, so it's because you were straw manning an opinion. If you had, you were you don't really hold that opinion, and that's why you were just playing, and you did not really want to go through this subject. But what I'm trying to do is go through that subject, because like I told you, I really believe that is true, and I think that is a really important topic to be discussed nowadays, because we have all these transgender issues in the Olympics and in games nowadays, and there is a lot of opinions, but there is what I believe is there is a factual, an objective, reality that men are better than women. That's why we have different competitions for both sex in everything. And therefore we do need to keep that difference and this separation in between biological sex in games and competition.
By better, do you mean more athletic, or what do you mean by better?
Better in all this, the everything, like in the end would be results, and that's why we had to put to make men's and women's games.
Yeah, like definitely athleticism, they're different, but we're saying And are we saying when you say better, do you
Intellectual
just mean
as well.
better at athleticisms, or you're saying intellectual, better at so
Two.
better intellectual and better athleticism? Does that equal better, or is it just two things that we're equating with better?
I think the intellectual and the athletics, when we talk about people, humans in competitions, would be like just two different categories. And sometimes some games will need both,
Mm,
but some games will only need one of them. You know, like chess, you don't
mm.
need to be athletic, but man is still better than woman. That's why we have man chess and woman chess
Is there
championship.
anything that are women
And the
better at than
same
men?
way than men, there
Yeah.
are women that can be better than men in pretty much anything, and that is what makes us individuals. But in general, no, I don't think so.
If you found something, I'm not saying I have it, but if you found something that women were actually better at than men, would that reduce your confidence at all? Like computer engineering or
You
something like
you
that?
mean as a category
As a
that would
yeah, as a
find like,
population.
yeah, like if it happened of chess, in, you know, if women were better than men in chess, like all the best men are still worse than all the best women, like what happens in all the all the athletics and all the other competitions. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'll probably would lower my confidentiality in that.
Can I throw something out? Because it doesn't sound like you're absolute, but you had mentioned that if all men were worse than all women, but there are women who are better than men at chess currently. So why is it different?
Oh,
Why
no,
why
but
isn't it
what I'm talking is like, because we're talking about an average. That's why I told you, like, we can find an individual, one woman that is stronger
I
than the
misasked the question.
strongest
I
man.
misasked the
But what
question.
we're talking about is like the curve, the bell curve of woman will
Right.
always be under the curve of the man. So it's like all the best woman in chess, all the best women in chess will still gonna be worse than all the best men in chess.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that difference is what makes me, so if we found that difference twisted in some particular subject or topic, yeah, would reduce my confidentiality in saying that men are better than women.
If it turned out that chess isn't a very good measure for intellectual capacity, would that reduce your confidence at all? That intellectuals were mostly in men category?
But then we can take the IQ curves,
No,
and
I
then
hate
you're gonna
IQ.
find you know, but
That's
it
just
is.
multiple choice shape matching. Like, uh, if you told me
Look,
like intellectualism was like determined by like a multiple choice question,
you
you can do.
understand the IQ curve is exactly the same thing as saying, if we said, if we talk about the money curve. So
Mm,
it's comparative. It's not that the people, you know, like, I think it's natural that we have found out that people are all different. You know, that is the individuality and individuality of the genes. You know,
but
each one has a gene, a different
I'll
gene.
ask more
Yeah,
fundamental question. Do we have an objective way to measure intellectual capability as we do with like athleticism? Like with athleticism, we just put people on a
that's
line,
why I brought the
and
IQ.
have them run from here to here. But do you
Yeah,
think the IQ test is an objective standard for measuring intellectualism in
it
people or group
is.
populations?
It is. It is factual.
Oh,
I don't think it's not the, because that there are things that what I like to see is like there is a reality. Our way of perceiving it just doesn't change. I can be perceiving it wrong, but it still has a right thing. There are things that are not right or wrong. Those are called opinions, but there are facts. So it's like, for example,
I got a random question.
I'm gonna say something that is gonna be like controversial, like
And we
the
have a
Earth
radio
is
show coming up.
round.
We have a radio show coming up too. We have a radio show that's coming up in about a couple of minutes. But I'm wondering, like, an IQ test doesn't have things that you would go to college to learn, like linear
Yeah, but
algebra
that
or
is why
calculus.
and that's why IQ test is so good, because it's not measuring your knowledge. It's nothing that people will have to teach you. It's testing you, your rationalizing, you know, your capacity of rationalizing. So the IQ test is not about to test if you it's not to test, like, for example, the difference in between me that went through college and post-graduation and a person that, that would be completely unfair if it
Can
was
I throw
that
something out?
measured.
If we
But
had to
no,
like, if we had to like launch a rocket ship today, we need to hire rocket scientists. Should we
yeah.
hire them based on their ability to perform physical chemistry and engineering, or based on IQ alone?
No, but what we're talking about, because then you're changing subjects. You're jumping from, like, what is the best way of measuring intellectuality and IQ? But yes, if you're gonna talk about different fields, yes, I'm gonna prefer a doctor to take care of my wounds, and and the
Ah,
engineer to send the rocket to the to out of the
so
atmosphere.
it sounds
But
sounds like here we were just running into an issue where we didn't know what we meant by intellectualism. It seems like you can still be way smarter and more skilled than a person even with a really high IQ if you've actually studied in that field, which does seem to be based on sex. But we got a radio show coming up.
yeah, no, but that is what I was talking. We're talking about two different factors,
Yeah,
like
seems like completely
intellectual
different.
and knowledge, and those two things are it's the IQ doesn't measure that,
That
and
I got to
that's
be
what I
honest,
was pointing.
I don't know what the significance of IQ is if it doesn't correlate to skill, knowledge, and capability
No,
to
no,
perform.
no. The IQ
Oh,
would be like your capacity of rationalizing. So that is like the basics. If you can really, that's why the thing is not related to language.
mm.
If you see an IQ test, there is no language involved. It's normally like images and figures. It's just to test your capacity of rationalizing, of using your skill of thinking,
Seems
So
like a really, really focused definition.
it, I'm not really being being I don't have anything to really follow the specifics of IQ tests and everything here to tell you. But what I understand from IQ, and that's what I'm trying to tell you, the way that I see, it's not like it's objective in the way that is like a scale. So
Yeah,
what
it's a
it
number.
does, it puts you in a scale. So it's like I was talking about being rich or poor. It's comparative. So it cannot, if everybody's rich, there is no rich and poor. If everybody has the same amount of money, so rich and poorness is like it's being in that range, and the same thing with IQ. It's subjective in the way that measure your capacity, but inside this scale, this range of everybody. So you're gonna put people, and yeah, the 100, that would be like the I don't even know the expression in English, but like the limit, the linear would go across the curve as more people do it, and or better or worse, so it's comparative, and in the way that we'll measure this capacity, and independent of knowledge. So that is the thing I wanted to tell you why it's so good, because you could say like, oh, so the scientist will score more than the person did not go through college, and it's like, no, because it's not measuring their knowledge in any way. It's not a
Intellectual.
language related. It's but yeah, I don't really have the proper terms to talk about such a high subject.
We can talk about it some more. In fact, we got another show coming up. But
Yeah.
how about we close for at least right now, and we can see you on the other channel, and we'll
Yeah,
also
that
put
is
the channel as well.
that's perfect.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
You want to say a bye bye to the people that
Bye
are
bye.
going to be watching us from the channel, and invite them to come see our stuff?
Yeah, and Fanny, I'm going to send you a bunch of links for the other street epistemologists that we mentioned on the show. I'd highly recommend for anyone who's interested in SC in general to check these things out. And yeah, I had a really fun time. It was really good talking to you.
Can I ask you something else? Do you go to events, talks, or conventions, and anything like
Yeah,
that? And is anything coming that you would like to let
I'll
people know
be
you're going to be there?
I'll be talking at the Kentucky Free Thought convention in Lexington, Kentucky, September 21st. And then I also have a engagement at Sunday Assembly in Nashville. You can check out their webpage at sundayassemblyNashville.com. They also have a meetup group where you can see all of their speakers lined up. And then, of course, we just did this, but if I have other stuff that I'll be doing, you'll see those videos on my channel and also on my Twitter account at at 5 minute chat or 5min chat. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, guys, don't forget to subscribe, comment below, and let us know what you think, what you're doing. You know, if you guys are doing some street epistemology, let us know on the comments below. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and follow us.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
See you.